Hello everyone and welcome back to JB's Total Gaming, where today I'm looking at Gigantic, a game that has a gigantic task if it wants to make it in this market of hero shooter, similar to games like Overwatch, as you probably know, games like Paladins that I've taken a look at on the channel, and there's a bunch of other games that go along this genre, including the ill-fated Battleborn, which I liked quite a bit. But this is a game that, again, focuses on just the heroes. There aren't really things like grunts or things going back and forth across the map, although there are creatures that you can summon, which I'm doing right now, and we'll talk about how that mechanism works in just a second, and they are pretty important to the game. So this is a game that has a lot of stuff to do if it wants to really make it on this market that is so dominated by Overwatch. Now, this is a game that you can try for free. It is on Steam. It is free to play. It does have a $10 option that gives you 8 heroes and some loot that unlocks for you for that option, or a $30 option that is kind of like buying Overwatch, where you're guaranteed all of the heroes now and any heroes that come out in the future. So that is nice. If you end up liking the game, you can try it for free, so that's a nice thing. And then if you do like it enough, you can just pay $30 and be guaranteed to have all the heroes, and you get some other loot along with that. As you would expect, this is a free-to-play game, so there is a kind of base currency that you get for playing the game, and then a more premium currency that you can get some of playing the game, but you can also buy as well. So what's the deal with this game? You'll be looking at it and saying, what is going on? Well, this game, one of its major selling points is the interesting mechanism. So you saw when we started the match, and I did very early on, I summoned a creature on this kind of power point. You can see, looking at the mini-map in the upper right, there are power points throughout the map. There are ones on our side, there are ones on the enemy side. I believe there's a neutral one in the middle as well. And you can summon these creatures to these points, or you can just summon the power from there. The power is important. You see the bars filling up on the top. In fact, our bar is filled up with yellow, and now our champion, or whatever it is, the big bird thing, is going after the big snake thing. So how is all of this working? Well, this is the really interesting mechanism of the game, is that as you get kills, and even more so as you either pull power from these power points or summon creatures on them, and you can only summon creatures on your own or the neutral one, I believe. I haven't played the game all that much. I'm not super into the details of it, but basically you can either gather power there or summon these creatures. You fill up that power bar, and then that is when your champion attacks the other team's champion. And when they attack, they basically hold that champion down, making them vulnerable, and then you get in and do damage. And now you can see in the upper slightly right of middle, the enemy champion now only has 2 hearts. Basically, the first one to wound the enemy's champion 3 times wins the game. So it's a really, I think, interesting mechanism that's a little bit different than most other games out there. And wow, you can see I just barely survived getting out of there. I am playing as a melee here. There are a lot of melee heroes. There are kind of damage dealers, tanks, supports, as you would expect, but they do draw a delineation between shooters and fighters, and this hero is definitely a melee hero. And right now what I'm doing is that thing in the center where it says FF, that is like my ultimate ability, but I can also use it to upgrade creatures. You can see there it got rid of the power that I had built up that you get from being in combat, and I upgraded the creature that I had summoned earlier into an adult creature that is more powerful. And that's pretty important, because these creatures, not only do they draw power, but they give special abilities depending on the creature, like being able to see enemies in the area, to heal allies, they build walls. There's different things that they do, and then obviously if you power them up and make them adult, they do become more powerful. Now you can also take out your enemy's creatures, which count as kills, which gives you power, which is a nice thing as well. So powering them up and making them tougher and more powerful is not a bad idea, and they will attack on their own. I believe we'll see an example of that coming up. So here we've filled up again, and we are going to attack the hero, and then there we go. Now the enemy champion, whatever actual name in the game they are, is vulnerable. You can see that they have a little bit of health left, and thankfully I'm playing against the AI right now, because I'm just checking the game out, and the enemies aren't taking me out. I'm on very low health, attacking their champion, and nobody decided to finish me off. So that was nice of them. I appreciate that. The AI against, when you're playing against AI, it is pretty easy, I would say, although it is a good way to learn the game, to learn the mechanisms, to learn the heroes. There is also kind of an arena you can go into with a hero and just take these kind of mundane enemies out and try to attack different types of the creatures that can be summoned as well, just to get used to the heroes. And I definitely suggest that. There is all of these games are going to have heroes that are comparable to other heroes, and everyone thinks everything is a copy of Overwatch, even though Overwatch is kind of a copy of some other games like Team Fortress 2, but anyways, we won't get into that. So, but Overwatch really did a good job of making interesting, unique characters, and, this game tries to do that as well. Now, there are a lot of melee characters in this game, bear that in mind. It's not like Overwatch where you have a couple, and that's something that you'll either like or dislike. Now, what I'm doing right now, this is something I forgot to do the entire game. You start with 1 point, and then as you get more powerful throughout the game, you'll get more of these level points. And you can upgrade your abilities. All of your abilities on your bar, including your ultimate, can be upgraded, and you can actually get kind of a one-time upgrade for your character that you have 3 choices as well, but you can't get that until level 5. Just playing against the AI, it's not that difficult, and this is the first time I played as this character, so I just kind of went and quickly picked some things. But it's interesting. You get choices that can upgrade your abilities. It doesn't necessarily make you a different character as much as in Paladins. The cards kind of slightly vary what your character is and what they're kind of designed to do and what they focus on. Although by upgrading certain abilities, you are kind of focusing on those abilities. And you can upgrade abilities multiple times as well, which is kind of cool. So that's something, again, that you either may like or dislike. And I really try on this channel to let people know not just what I think of a game, but what would make a game potentially interesting to you. So there's a lot more melee combat. Now, there are heroes who just shoot, if you're okay with that. And after this, we'll jump in and look a little bit at one of the heroes who shoots. And here you can see we're getting, rewards for the match and all of that. And, well, let's talk about a few more things that make this game interesting. Like, for example, the fortune cards, which is another way to gain new abilities. So you have the melee stuff, you have the unique mechanisms of taking out the enemy champion by building up power, and then you have these fortune cards where whenever you get one, you'll draw 3 and then you pick one, and these are ways in order to get more rewards. And you can see they have all different types of things. They're basically little quests that you can do to keep in mind while trying to gather resources to buy more heroes. And we'll also look at some heroes here in a second and kind of see how the free-to-play works as far as that's concerned. So we're going to go in here and take a look at some of the heroes, and you can see quite a few of them cost like 5,000 gold, or a certain amount of the premium currency, but some of them cost more, and I'm assuming it's the newer heroes, much like a lot of these games. This one costs 10,000. I believe the newest hero costs 13,000, but that's pretty standard fare for these games. For the newer, more exciting heroes that people don't have yet to cost more, so that the people who want to get them early will use more resources on them. So that's pretty standard. Now, as far as the variety of heroes, I've only played with the heroes on the rotation right now, so I haven't I don't have a lot to say. And this hero here that I'm playing with, people are going to compare to Bastion. He is kind of a walking turret. He can sit still and become more accurate in things, but it's not quite as powerful as Bastion in turret form. So, like all these games, you have different special abilities, and they are on cooldowns like you would expect. And so far, I'm enjoying the characters, and I actually really enjoy the art style too. I obviously really love the art style in Overwatch. I mentioned that it was my game of the year last year, but this game looks a little bit more maybe like Paladins, but I think it looks better. I feel like it's kind of got almost more of a slightly more hand-drawn style, but again, that's going to be up to you. But I really do like the aesthetic of this game. So as we check out some gameplay of a character that's a shooter class, let's talk about whether or not you will like this game. So the mechanisms as far as gathering power, having your hero attack, I think it adds a lot of cool dynamics to the game. There are certain points that are really intense where you have to go and attack. And if you take out enemy heroes while their champion is vulnerable, you get more time that their champion is vulnerable. If they take out you while you are attacking their champion, then they will get more shield, which will prevent a good amount of damage on their champion and make it so that maybe they won't take a wound. Because if you get that race all the way up to full power and then don't get a wound, that is kind of a bummer, and then the power resets to 0. So you can decide for yourself if that's interesting to you. However, right now that seems to be the only game mode. So it's a unique game mode. I personally think it's a really cool game mode. I like how there's some strategy to controlling these points, to what creatures you summon, and you can even use money to summon different types of creatures as well, different resources you get in the game. But I really like that, but you may not. And a real negative, though, is, of course, that that's the only game mode. So you better find that game mode really enjoyable. So, there's more melee. I do like the idea of the skill points. I don't use them very well because you don't really have to against the AI, and I hadn't really been thinking about. But that's something you can decide for yourself. Maybe you like just having a character you go in with, and you don't like having to spend time figuring out what points you want. But after you learn what sort of builds you want to do with those upgrades, it is pretty quick and simple. And if you're really into customizing your character within the game, leveling up your character in the game like MOBAs do, then that's something that you might think is a big bonus. The cards are pretty cool. It gives you things to shoot for as you play. So if you like the idea of more melee, more hero customization, and an interesting style, including more MOBA style maps, there's not so many like buildings or secret paths or things to get around. It's more about controlling the points and things like that. They are relatively small maps, but I think it suits well to the style of gameplay and those interesting mechanisms as far as how the game goes. If you think those are interesting, well, you can check out the game for free. However, again, bear in mind there is not a lot of variety with only that one game mode, as cool as it may be. So there you go. What do I think of it? I like it, but I don't know how long I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to give it a little bit more and see if it really hooks me. My biggest problem is, while I really like the idea of the game mode, and I think it's interesting, I think it's neat, and I actually really like the art style, so far the characters I played are unique and interesting. I played some characters that aren't available on the rotation right now in the arena mode. I really like this frog dude. I don't know. It seems like, there's going to be carryover and similar abilities to other games, but overall, I think they've done a pretty good job with unique looking characters and unique abilities, even if they don't have the personalities that they do in Overwatch or something like that. So if this looks intriguing, you can check it out for free. That's always a nice thing. It is on Steam now. It wasn't initially, but you can get it there. And if you end up really liking it, you can decide how much to invest. The $10 to unlock some characters, or the $30 to get everything. So there you have it. Gigantic is a game that I don't necessarily think will last all that long with a big player base, just because it's going into a market that is going to be difficult to compete. But maybe it will. Maybe people will be interested enough in the gameplay that isn't quite as much of a MOBA as, oh my gosh, it slipped my mind. What's the game that got crushed and it came out around the same time as Overwatch? Battleborn, there you go. So you don't have like the minions and things going across the map, but I do, again, like the art style. I like the game mode itself, but we'll see if the lack of variety will be interesting enough for people to keep playing the game. Thanks a lot for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed, and if you think it looks vaguely interesting at all, go check it out for free on Steam. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you again soon.